Princess Diana didn't die in a car crash. She died in an ambulance that took 2 hours to drive 6 miles. The Mercedes hit the pillar at 12:23 a.m., but Diana was still alive and conscious when rescuers reached her, and the ambulance departed at 1:41 a.m. for a hospital 10 minutes away, but stopped 4 times during the journey, arriving at 2:06 a.m., 1:03 minutes to travel 3.8 miles. And by then, her heart had stopped beating. This video reveals what happened in the Pont de l'Alma Tunnel during the 78 minutes before the ambulance left. Why 9 witnesses who saw a white Fiat Uno force the Mercedes into the pillar were never found by investigators. How Diana's seatbelt was cut before rescuers arrived, and why the driver's blood showed lethal carbon monoxide poisoning despite security footage showing him alert and steady just minutes before the crash. The firefighter knelt beside the crumpled Mercedes. Her eyes were open, moving, following his flashlight. "Can you hear me?" Princess Diana tried to speak. Her lips moved but no sound came. Her right arm lifted slightly, fingers trembling, reaching toward nothing. "Stay still, we're getting you out." He touched her hand. It was warm, pulse steady. She was alive, injured but conscious, savable. Behind him someone was cutting the rear seatbelt. The leather strap fell away, frayed edges clean and deliberate. The firefighter turned. "What are you doing? Leave her secured until..." "Orders," the man said. "Civilian clothes, no uniform, no badge visible." "Whose orders?" The man didn't answer, just moved back into the shadows gathering at the tunnel's edge, where the sodium lights couldn't quite reach. The firefighter looked down at Diana again. Her eyes found his, and in that moment, he saw something he'd spend the rest of his life trying to unsee. Recognition. She knew something had changed. That rescue had become something else entirely. The Pont de l'Alma Tunnel runs 570 feet beneath the Seine River in Paris. At 12:23 a.m. on August 31, 1997, a black Mercedes S2080 entered at approximately 65 miles per hour. Inside, Princess Diana, Dodi Fayed, Trevor Rees-Jones, Henri Paul. The car never emerged from the other side. According to the official French investigation, Henri Paul lost control. The Mercedes swerved left, struck the tunnel's 13th pillar, spun 180 degrees, and came to rest facing backward. Cause: driver intoxication and excessive speed. Duration of investigation: 3 years. Conclusion: tragic accident. But the physical evidence photographed in the tunnel that night tells a different story. At 12:25 a.m., 2 minutes after impact, the first witness arrived. Dr. Frederick Maillet, an emergency physician, happened to be driving through the tunnel, saw the wreckage, stopped immediately. He ran to the Mercedes, found Diana conscious in the back seat, sitting upright, restrained by her seatbelt. "She looked at me," Maillet later testified. "She was alert, in shock but aware. I saw no external injuries except a small wound on her forehead." Maillet called emergency services, reported one seriously injured woman, requested immediate ambulance. The call was logged at 12:26 a.m. Then Maillet made a decision that haunted him for decades. He left. "I thought the ambulance would arrive within minutes," he told investigators years later. "I didn't realize I should stay." By the time he drove away at 12:30 a.m., other civilian witnesses had stopped, were gathering near the wreckage, taking photos, making calls. Maillet never saw any of them again, because those witnesses vanished before police could identify them. At 12:32 a.m., French emergency services arrived. 6 firefighters, 2 police units, paramedics. They found Diana still conscious, still breathing, still restrained by her seatbelt, but the seatbelt was wrong. Fire Captain Xavier Gourmelon, who directed the rescue, later described what he saw. The rear seatbelt had been cut, not torn from impact. Cut, clean edges. Someone had used a blade. The Mercedes had been locked when Maillet arrived, doors jammed from impact. Yet between 12:26 a.m. and 12:32 a.m., someone accessed the car, cut Diana's seatbelt, disappeared into the gathering darkness at the tunnel's edges. Firefighters documented this in their initial report. French investigators noted it, then buried it under 6,000 pages of investigation documents that took 3 years to produce, and concluded the seatbelt cutting was irrelevant to cause of death. If someone accessed the car before rescuers arrived, the question becomes, what else did they do in those 6 minutes when no one was watching? Henri Paul, the Mercedes driver, died instantly in the crash. His autopsy revealed catastrophic injuries consistent with high-speed frontal impact, but it also revealed something that made no medical sense. Henri Paul's blood alcohol level: 1.75 grams per liter, 3 times France's legal driving limit. Carbon monoxide: 20.7% saturation, a level so high it should have caused severe impairment, possible unconsciousness. According to toxicologists, someone with that combination in their bloodstream would be visibly intoxicated. Slurred speech, unsteady gait, impaired coordination. The problem: Henri Paul was filmed by Ritz Hotel security cameras at 11 p.m., 83 minutes before the crash. The footage shows him standing steady, speaking clearly, walking normally, coordinating complex tasks, not stumbling, not slurring, not showing any visible sign of the catastrophic intoxication his blood supposedly contained. Dr. Peter Vanizes, a forensic pathologist who reviewed Paul's autopsy, identified multiple problems. Carbon monoxide at 20% saturation would produce cherry red blood and tissue. Paul's blood and organs showed no such discoloration. The alcohol level is inconsistent with his behavior on camera. The samples were not taken until 20 hours after death, creating contamination risk. No chain of custody documentation exists, proving the samples tested were actually Paul's blood. Vanizes concluded the toxicology results were suspect at best, but French investigators relied entirely on those results to conclude Henri Paul was drunk and high on prescription medication, and therefore responsible for the crash. If the blood tested wasn't his, the entire official narrative collapses. Because if Paul was sober, driving normally, something else caused the crash. Something in that tunnel with them. At 11:50 p.m., 30 minutes before the crash, Henri Paul received a phone call. He was in the Ritz Hotel bar, alone, waiting for Diana and Dodi to finish dinner upstairs. Security footage shows Paul answering his mobile, speaking for approximately 90 seconds. His expression changed during the call, tension visible in his shoulders. He ended the call, made 2 more calls immediately after, short, urgent. Then he went to find Trevor Rees-Jones and told him there'd been a change of plan. They would use a decoy, 2 cars. The main security vehicle would leave through the front entrance, drawing paparazzi. Diana and Dodi would leave through the rear in an unmarked Mercedes, driven by Paul himself. This wasn't standard procedure. Paul was deputy head of security, not a driver, but Paul insisted he would drive. The route would be different from planned. Who called Paul at 11:50 p.m.? What did they tell him? French police analyzed Paul's phone records, found the incoming call at 11:50 p.m. The number was registered to a prepaid SIM card, purchased with cash, never used before that night, never used again after, untraceable. Someone called Henri Paul from an anonymous phone 30 minutes before the crash and convinced him to change the plan that would lead directly into the tunnel where he would die. That call was documented, then classified, sealed in files the French government refuses to release, and that's where coincidence starts looking like coordination. Nine witnesses saw a white Fiat Uno in the Alma Tunnel immediately before the crash. Not after. Before. The Fiat was traveling slowly in the right lane. The Mercedes, approaching fast from behind, moved to pass. As the Mercedes drew alongside, the Fiat swerved left, forcing the Mercedes toward the tunnel wall. The Mercedes overcorrected, lost control, struck the pillar. The Fiat didn't stop, didn't brake, drove away into the Paris night. Witnesses got partial plate numbers. Descriptions: white Fiat Uno, older model, damage visible on the rear quarter panel. Some witnesses saw the driver, male, 40s, dark hair. French police documented these statements, issued a nationwide alert for a white Fiat Uno with specific damage patterns. They never found it. More precisely, they found 4,000 white Fiat Unos, inspected every one registered in Paris and surrounding regions. None matched. None had drivers matching the description who couldn't account for their whereabouts that night. The car vanished, but the white Fiat left evidence in the tunnel. Paint transfer on the Mercedes' right side. White paint. Forensic analysis matched it to Fiat Uno manufacturing specifications from a specific year range. Taillight fragments on the roadway. Plastic pieces from a Fiat Uno rear lamp assembly. The exact model used between 1983 and 1989. Rubber residue on the tunnel wall. Tire marks consistent with Fiat Uno standard tires. The physical evidence proved the Fiat existed, was in the tunnel, made contact with Diana's Mercedes. So where did it go? British investigator John McNamara, working for Mohammed Al-Fayed, spent years trying to find it, interviewed witnesses, analyzed registration records, followed hundreds of leads. His conclusion: the Fiat was disposed of within hours of the crash. Someone with resources and planning made sure it would never be found. One witness, photographer James Anderson, owned a white Fiat Uno matching the description. His car had unexplained front-end damage. He couldn't account for his whereabouts the night of the crash. French police questioned him briefly, accepted his explanation that he was elsewhere, closed that line of inquiry. 3 years later, Anderson was found dead in a burned-out car in rural France. Gunshot wound to the head. Ruled suicide. The white Fiat Uno he'd owned had been sold weeks before his death. The buyer was never identified. The car never located. Anderson never got to explain what his white Fiat was doing that night. And after his death, no one could ask him anymore. At 12:23 a.m., when the Mercedes crashed, Dozens of vehicles were in or near the Pont de l'Alma Tunnel. Some stopped, some slowed, some drove through. By 12:35 a.m., when police secured the scene, 9 civilian witnesses had given preliminary statements about what they'd seen. They described the white Fiat, the way it swerved, the deliberate motion. They provided partial plate numbers, described the driver. Police took names, contact information, promised follow-up interviews. Then something strange happened. When investigators tried to locate these witnesses for formal statements, they couldn't find them. The phone numbers didn't work. The addresses didn't exist. The names matched no one in databases. 9 witnesses who gave detailed accounts, who saw the white Fiat force Diana's car into the pillar, vanished completely. Were they real, or were they observers who disappeared once their role was complete? One witness didn't vanish because he was too prominent to make disappear. François Levistre, a truck driver, was entering the tunnel as the crash occurred. He saw everything. In his initial police statement, "I saw a white Fiat Uno and a motorcycle with 2 people. The Fiat swerved into the Mercedes path. It looked intentional. The motorcycle was pacing the Mercedes, very close." Levistre described the motorcycle riders both wearing full helmets, dark clothing, moving with precision. "They weren't paparazzi," he said. "Paparazzi don't ride like that." French police documented his statement, then called him back. In his second statement, Levistre changed his story. "I might have been mistaken about the Fiat. Maybe I didn't see it swerve. Maybe it was just driving normally." What happened between his first and second statements? Levistre later told British investigators, "I was visited, told that for my own safety, I should reconsider what I saw." He was threatened, changed his testimony, and lived. The 9 witnesses who didn't change their stories? Their names stopped appearing in any official record after that first night in the tunnel. Part 5. The ambulance. At 1:41 a.m. 78 minutes after the crash, ambulance SAMU 88 departed the tunnel with Princess Diana. Destination, La Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, 3.8 miles away. The ambulance arrived at 2:06 a.m., 25 minutes to travel less than 4 miles. But those weren't driving minutes. During the journey, the ambulance stopped 4 times, each stop lasting several minutes. French authorities explained, emergency medical protocols required stops to stabilize the patient. But the stops weren't at regular intervals. They weren't at medical facilities. They were on random streets. And during the stops, according to witnesses who saw the ambulance parked, no one entered or exited. The vehicle just sat there, lights flashing, engine running, motionless. What was happening inside those tinted windows? Dr. Bruno Rieu, the physician in the ambulance with Diana, testified that she went into cardiac arrest during transport, that resuscitation was performed, that they had to stop to stabilize her. But Dr. Monsef Daman, who received Diana at the hospital, testified she arrived with a heartbeat. She was not in cardiac arrest when she reached us. The 2 doctors' accounts don't align. Either Diana coded in the ambulance and was revived, or she didn't code until reaching the hospital. One of them is wrong, or one of them isn't telling the truth. Fire Captain Gormolin, who extracted Diana from the wreckage, later said, "She was not in critical condition when we loaded her. She was seriously injured, yes, but she was not dying, not then." At 2:06 a.m. Diana arrived at La Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital still alive. Doctors performed emergency thoracotomy, opening her chest to massage her heart directly, transfusions, every intervention possible. At 4 a.m. 3 hours and 37 minutes after the crash, Princess Diana was pronounced dead. Dr. Rieu later said, "If she had arrived at the hospital 20 minutes earlier, we might have saved her." 20 minutes. The British investigation later calculated that with normal protocols, immediate departure, direct route, standard speed, Diana would have reached the hospital by 1 a.m., an hour earlier. An hour that might have been enough. That hour didn't disappear by accident. It was spent watching an ambulance that wouldn't move while a princess slowly ran out of time. The Pont de l'Alma Tunnel had 17 security cameras in August 19, covering every angle, every approach, installed specifically to monitor this high-traffic underground route. When investigators requested the footage, they were told 14 cameras weren't functioning the night of the crash. Technical malfunction, Paris police explained. Coincidental failure. 14 cameras, same night, same hours. The 3 cameras that were supposedly working, their footage was never released. French authorities claimed the angles showed nothing relevant. British investigator John Stevens, who led a second inquiry, formally requested the tunnel footage, was told no footage existed, not corrupted, not damaged, just gone. Whoever controlled those cameras controlled what the world would see and what the world wouldn't. One camera, privately owned by a business near the tunnel entrance, captured footage. The owner realized it had recorded vehicles entering the tunnel around the time of the crash. He contacted French police, offered the tape. Police collected it within hours. promised it would be entered into evidence. That footage was never seen again. Not included in the French investigation files, not mentioned in any official report. When the business owner inquired, he was told the tape had been lost during processing. A backup copy he'd made. 2 men in suits visited him, informed him that withholding evidence was a crime, took the backup. He never made another copy, never spoke publicly about what his camera had recorded. But he told his family, "I saw the white car, I saw everything." And then he stopped talking about it entirely, the way people do when they realize silence is safer than truth. In 2004, 7 years after Diana's death, Mohammed Al-Fayed convinced British authorities to open a formal inquest. Operation Paget, led by former Metropolitan Police Commissioner Lord Stevens, cost £12.5 million. Duration 3 years. Pages produced 832. Conclusion: Diana and Dodi died as a result of the gross negligence of their driver and the paparazzi following them. No murder, no conspiracy, tragic accident. The inquest addressed and dismissed every theory. The white Fiat probably existed but not relevant. The ambulance delays, medically justified. The cut seatbelt, rescuers did it, forgot to document. The switched blood samples, no evidence. The vanished witnesses, gave false information. Every anomaly explained, every question answered. Except the inquest refused to address several critical pieces of evidence. The phone call to Henry Paul at 11:50 p.m. from an untraceable number, outside scope of inquiry. The carbon monoxide levels in Paul's blood medically impossible with his filmed behavior, addressed by French investigation. Diana's letter to her butler stating, "My husband is planning an accident in my car." Not credible evidence. The 14 non-functioning tunnel cameras. Technical issue, not suspicious. Witnesses who described a deliberate coordinated operation. Unreliable testimony. Stevens concluded what he was directed to conclude. Accident, not murder. But even Stevens admitted in private conversations years later, there were things we couldn't pursue. Lines of inquiry that were blocked. The inquest answered every question except the ones that mattered, and declared the case closed anyway. 27 years after Princess Diana died in the Pont de l'Alma Tunnel, the French government still holds classified files related to her death. Files that won't be released until 2047, 50 years after the crash. Long enough for everyone involved to be dead. What's in those files? The official answer: privacy protection for witnesses and investigative integrity. But Diana is dead. Dodi is dead. Henry Paul is dead. The investigation is closed. Privacy isn't what those files are protecting. 3 possibilities remain about what happened in the tunnel on August 31st. Theory 1. Tragic accident. Henry Paul was intoxicated, drove too fast, lost control. Everything else, the white Fiat, the ambulance delays, the vanished witnesses, was coincidence and investigative incompetence. Theory 2. Negligent homicide. The paparazzi pursuit created conditions where a crash was inevitable. The ambulance delays were genuine protocol, but the cumulative negligence killed Diana as surely as any weapon. Theory 3. Assassination. Someone called Henry Paul with instructions. Someone in a white Fiat forced the Mercedes into the pillar. Someone delayed the ambulance until Diana's injuries became fatal. Someone made the tunnel cameras fail. Someone made the witnesses disappear. The physical evidence supports all 3 theories. The question is, which evidence do you believe? And which evidence was someone making sure you'd never see? The Pont de l'Alma Tunnel is still there, under the Seine, unchanged since 1997. The 13th pillar, the one Diana's Mercedes struck, was marked with flowers and candles for years. In 2011, Paris authorities removed it. Traffic hazard, they said. The tunnel sees 40,000 vehicles per day now. Commuters, tourists, people who don't know what happened there. But sometimes late at night, drivers report the same thing. A white Fiat Uno in the right lane, moving slowly, swerving. Then it's gone, like it was never there at all. The tunnel knows what happened that night. The 17 cameras that weren't working know. The ambulance that took 103 minutes to drive 3.8 miles knows. And somewhere in Paris, locked in a vault until 2047, the classified files know. But the only witnesses who saw the white Fiat force Diana's car into the pillar are dead, disappeared, or silent. Princess Diana died at 4 a.m. on August 31st, 1997, but the investigation died long before that, ended by whoever made sure the tunnel cameras didn't record, whoever made sure the white Fiat was never found, whoever made sure the witnesses who saw too much stopped existing in any official record. The truth is in that tunnel, buried under 570 feet of concrete and 27 years of official silence, and it will stay buried until everyone who knows it is gone. The white Fiat drives through that tunnel every night, swerving left, forcing cars toward pillars, disappearing before anyone can prove it was ever real. The tunnel is still waiting for someone to tell the truth, But the people who could are running out of time.